How you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. Today we're taking a look at PC Comics' Elric of Melibone, or Michael Moorcock's Elric. This is issue number 1, and this is by Roy Thomas, P. Craig Russell, and Michael T. Gilbert. I don't even know what year this is, so I'm not going to hazard a guess. But I love this comic. It was a 6-issue series that was a comic book version of the first Elric of Melibone novel. And then they did all the Elric and Melibone, usually about 5 or 6 issues each book. Let's take a look. 1983. Copyright 1983. Roy Thomas was he was a Marvel editor. He was one of the first of the new hires for Marvel Comics. And he's like a second generation. So the first generation were like the original comic book talents, like Jack Kirby and Joe Simon and all those guys. And then Stan Lee hired Roy Thomas. So he was like a kid when he got hired, and then he later became the editor-in-chief in the early 70s. And he got, I don't know if he quit or was asked to leave. I forget why, but then he went back to being a writer again, and he went to DC Comics. And I've said his name before. He's like a walking encyclopedia of all things comic book. The guy's an amazing fountain of knowledge. But here he was hired. Sorry about my voice. I've been working outside, and like we've been into traffic, so I've been raising my volume to keep talking. But anyway, back to the comic. He was the PC Comics was a short-lived comic book company. This is April 1983, published by Monthly. And they had a tremendous connection. They got Jack Kirby, they got Roy Thomas, and all these wonderful talents to work on their comics. And as you could see, the artist is P. Craig Russell and Michael T. Gilbert. Michael T. Gilbert went to do Mr. Monster, which is a bizarre series. I should showcase that. That is so good. And P. Craig Russell did the famous Doctor Strange: The Oath comic. Just too imaginative artist. Oh my God, so good, as you'll see in this art. So there's no need to keep belaboring the point. But this is the first novel of Michael Moorcock's Elric of Melibone, and that's the name of the novel. And it's like a 6-issue miniseries about this. So here's Elric, the Emperor of Melibone, or Melibone. I some people will correct me, but I always said Melibone as a kid, and it kind of sticks to me, so I don't know. But here he is on the ruby throne. And what is Melibone? It's like a other dimensional like version of like fantasy England kind of, and it's this island that's decadent. It goes back like thousands of years, and they're all like sorcerers, and Elric is the hereditary king, and because of that he inherits like these rings and a magic sword and everything that gives him like these vast powers. And because of his lineage, he's able to invoke these gods or elemental beings and use their power. So he's tremendously powerful sorcerer. The problem is he was born an albino, either through inbreeding or curse. I don't remember why. So he's physically weak. So he needs like these magical potions to keep himself like the strength of a normal human. And he has this magic sword that when he kills somebody with it, it drains their blood and their soul and their essence. And most of it goes to the sword itself, which is like a sentient demonic being. And it also goes to him, and it makes him more powerful. The problem is it's like addictive, and the sword has a will of his own. And this is his cousin Urkun. And Urkun is the next in line for the throne. In the book, Urkun has long black hair. It's a contrast of his long white hair. But they gave him short curly red hair. I don't know why. But and they're all decadent and evil. And I remember before I even read these comics or read the books from Dungeons and Dragons, they had him in the deities and demigods, and they made him chaotic evil. But after reading the books, he's not chaotic evil. But that's besides the point. So here's Urkun like taunting him. So Elric, he's always pestering him. So consider like a Thor and Loki kind of relationship. So everybody's like, whatever, watching these two battle of wits all the time. And this is Urkun's sister, Smorl. And like I said, they're like an inbred island empire, like of decadence, and they're betrothed. This is Elric's love, you know, and he's just threatening her and being a jerk and everything like that. Here's the dragon helm. Instead of a crown, they have the dragon helm. And why the dragon helm? Because what makes Melibone powerful to rule the continent from this island is they have these dragons that they ride into battle. So think of it definitely. I would say R.R. Martin was influenced by this when he did Game of Thrones, because their whole power is based on sorcery and mastery of the dragons. And this is, if I remember correctly, Divam Slorm. And Divam is like the title for like a dragon master, and he's like the head of the dragon army. And these are the lances that they use to prod the dragons into doing their bidding. And then the dragons have to go to sleep for a long time, so they don't want to arouse the dragons too often. So he's of course mean to his sister and slaps her around. There's nothing redeeming about Urkun. He's just jealous. He's vindictive, and he's petty. So Elric and Smorl, it's like almost like a wholesome love, all the more tragic. So just look at this gorgeous artwork. I mean, it was so different than everything at the time that I was reading, all typical Marvel. This was even before my DC time. So I was definitely into independent comics before I was even into DC. And I was big into Dungeons and Dragons at this time, and so this was right up my alley. So just setting up this idyllic, but I'm kind of going past this comic, because this comic is only 1 out of 6. So lovey-dovey, they're all this perfect love of Elric and Smorl. And again, that sets up the tragedy that'll happen. So I'll talk about more of the story of Elric after I'm done with this book. But just they're talking about the people. They're decadent, they're horrible, they're nasty. Here's the dragons. This is going into some backstory of the history of how Melibone was able to rule the continent, because they have all these advantages, because they have like these pacts with these elemental and demonic and godlike beings. And these pacts go back like thousands of years. So they have a lot of like knowledge and information that the younger, or as they call them, the young nations, don't have. They also have these gigantic ships that are like floating ziggurats that are just like these behemoths that come out of the sea. So they have these unsinkable juggernaut ships, ziggurat ships, that they just rain down this like Greek fire. So it's like a chemical napalm that burns even in the water. And then if that's not bad enough, they have dragons, and then they're warriors and wizards on top of it. So they're unbeatable. They rule with an iron fist. And here they're going into Elric's mother died giving birth to him. Elric's father, like these tall, like elf-like thing, and the father was pissed off because the child is born a weak albino, and because of that, he didn't go out and do all the physical stuff. So he took a mastery to magic at a young age. See, here he is being tutored by these magical masters, and here they're talking about his weakness, and they had to bring in this potion to make him strong. Strong as a normal person, like not super strong, but he was like, he had like heightened abilities when wielded his sword. So here's the dragon helm. He's contemplating the lonely nature and everything. And now he comes back. That was all flashback while he was in this romantic cave with his love, Smorl. And this comic is in remarkably good shape. So here they're riding back through the storms, and he like I said, the kings of Melibone, the emperors of Melibone, they have like a connection to the elemental lord. So this passage is there. He almost goes into like this frenzy when he goes through the storm, and it kind of frightens Smorl. So he's got that going for him, which is nice. So here she's wondering, is she losing him? Is he succumbing to madness, which is what happens to a lot of these kings, because of these pacts with demonic beings. This comic was Captain Victory, and Captain Victory was a Jack Kirby comic, and I bought it. I will admit that it's not Jack's best work, but the owner of PC Comics got, I don't know how, but he got Jack Kirby to work with them, and it was the first PC comic, Pacific comic, that they produced, and it sold over 300,000 copies. You know, amazing. So here is etc. This is like, you know, a letters page, but they don't have the letters yet because it's the first issue. So it's the editors talking about it. And here's some sketches. You know, the artists are doing concept sketches, and you know, the rough pencils, thick, you know, adding into the pencils some inks, and these are rejected sketches for the cover. You know, this one, they said he looked sickly. This one, it just didn't look quite right. This one was, you know, whatever. And I'll go back to the cover to show you. I'm just showing Edge of Chaos. This was a Gray Morrow comic. Like, somehow time travel, he ends up becoming a Hercules. That was his name. And believe it or not, I have all of these comics. I've had them for 20 years. I've never read them. So it's time to break out the Miss Mystic. This is Neil Adams. Just wonderful sketches. You know, this is Gilbert and Russell. They're just, you know, drawing to get a feel of the comic itself. Alien Worlds. This is I did a showcase on Twisted Tales, but that is like Twisted Tales but science fiction. So here we're back to the cover. So for those who may not know, Michael Moorcock was a British writer. He did a fantasy, like a very high fantasy, about these race of sorcerers. They live on an island, they ride dragons, and they invade the continent. So I mean, if George R. Martin definitely read Melibone, there's no way. There's too many similarities, and the dragon riders were decadent and you know, incestuous and all that fantasy trope stuff. And what happens is Urkun gets a copy of Stormbringer is his ancient evil black blade, and Urkun gets Mournblade, which is the twin. So whatever this demon that takes the shape of a sword, there's another demon that takes a shape of a sword, which is an exact replica called Mournblade. And Urkun and Elric fight, and during the fight, Samoral's like, please stop, it's my brother and my, you know, my lover, my husband, my cousin. They're all, you know, and Urkun throws Samoral, and she spins, and Elric tries to not hurt her, but the sword is hungry. The sword, it's been battling its twin. It's starving, and the sword forces Elric to stab Samoral. So he kills the only good thing in his life. So he decides to take it out on the Dreaming City. Dreaming City is the capital of Melibone. So he destroys it. He you know, is the last emperor, and he destroys Melibone, and then he just goes out into the young kingdoms and lives. So this all happens in the first book. I mean, if I'm spoiling a 60-year-old book, I'm sorry, but it's just wonderful. I recommend the comic. I recommend the books. The books read like comics. They're short little books. The later Elric, the first six, and here are the titles of the first six. We got Elric of Melibone, The Weird of the White Wolf, The Sailor in the Seas of Fate, The Bane of the Black Sword, Stormbringer, and The Vanishing Tower. Those are amazing. After that, they kind of the style kind of changes. These were the original Elric books. I think they were such a big hit that they brought them back. You know, that he went back and visited, and I don't know. I find the other books to be a little bit different, and I don't particularly like them as much as I like the original six. But he's one of the eternal champions, like this being that's interconnected with like Jerry Cornelius, Jared Cornwell, I think his name is, Urkun, and then Prince Coram. They're all the same being at different points in time and in different dimensions, and they kind of get glimpses of each other. So they're different characters, they're different book series, but they're all one. The many who are one. It's kind of mystical, and Michael Moorcock was very into that mystical stuff. I found it fascinating. I just bought the Adventures of Coram, Hawkmoon, in a bound edition, and I got Count Brass and another collected edition. They're just fun books. So this is just filled with high adventure, demons, gods, magicians, sorcerers. It's all of that stuff. It's high fantasy. I particularly like the low fantasy, like Conan, until my adult years. This was right up a kid's alley. But Conan, I think, is more adult, and I appreciate Conan more these days. But there you go. This is I cannot recommend this enough. There's also a hardcover collected, just called The Dreaming City. So this is Elric of Melibone. This is the first book, but the actual destruction of the Dreaming City is in a hardcover called, or a softcover, but a graphic novel called The Dreaming City. Oddly enough, put out by Marvel Comics. So that actually came out first, and then these guys, Pacific Comics, came and hired this same team to actually finish the books. So if you're interested in this, look at Marvel Comics. I think it's Epic Comics, the Dreaming City. I should break that out. That is wonderful. And then follow it up with PC Comics, Pacific Comics, Elric. Just wonderful. So there you go. I hope you. Oh, let's see what's on the back cover. Oh, here we go. The back cover. There's Morn Blade, and that's Stormbringer. Just so good. Just wonderful comics. I can't recommend this enough. I read these over and over and over again, to the point like I have them, like even today I still remember most of these panels. So there you go. A lot of fun. Hope you enjoyed this, and happy Labor Day. Bye bye.